Hello there, and welcome back to the channel Russia in Context. Today we are in the Basmanny Raion of Moscow, and I'm going to take you on a little tour of the region, show you some places of interest, and explain to you a little bit why this is a region of the city that I am just totally in love with. The Basmanny District technically starts near the Kremlin in Kitay-Gorod and runs northeast past both the Garden and Third Ring roads. Its outer limits by Metro Elektrozavodskaya. However, I have a hard time associating the parts inside the Garden Ring and outside the Third Ring with the region. So today, we're going to be focusing on the part sandwiched between those two roads and hemmed in even further by railways and the Yauza River. The starting point and center of our exploration will be Metro Baumanskaya. Upon exiting Metro Baumanskaya, we find a series of ceramic bas-reliefs immediately to the left. If you look closely, you'll see Peter the Great in the second one. These decorative panels depict life in this region at the start of the 18th century. They were installed along with the construction of this small common space found outside the exit when the station underwent renovations in 2018. This region sees a steady flow into and out of the metro thanks to the Bauman University, which is nearby. As we round the metro vestibule and approach Baumanskaya Ulitsa, we see an older mural on the side of a residential building with the words Nemetskaya Sloboda, 16th century, written below. That is the historical name of this region. Checking for trams before jaywalking, we cross the street to enter into the covered shopping space of Yelokhovsky Passage. The name Yelokhovo is another reference to the history of this region. Back before it became a part of Moscow in the 18th century, there was a village here with that name. Today, the name is perhaps most commonly associated with the architectural landmark built in the village. So this right here is Bogayevlensky Sabor, or the Church of the Epiphany at Yelokhovo, or just simply Yelokhovo Cathedral. Now, this cathedral is important or famous for two reasons. One, here in 1799 is where the famous Russian poet Alexander Pushkin was baptized. But sort of more recently, during the Soviet Union, the Russian Orthodox Church continued to exist, but many churches were closed or destroyed by the government. However, this one remained open, and it was the seat of the Russian Orthodox Church during the Soviet Union. Now, this building behind me here, we're on the other side of the church now, it's actually just a nice little wooden building, nice and yellow, bright and sunny, all that fun stuff. But that's not the reason it's interesting. This is actually one of the only wooden buildings to survive the Great Fire from the Napoleonic Wars. After his victory at the Battle of Borodino, Napoleon and nearly 100,000 of his troops occupied Moscow. However, this state of affairs didn't last long as fires broke out across the largely abandoned city and spread rapidly thanks to dry weather and intense winds. It's generally believed that Russian officials set the fires themselves, as the French were planning on spending the winter in the city, but it is possible they were the result of the general chaos of the city's evacuation, or maybe even just carelessness on the part of the occupiers. Regardless of who or how it was started, by the end, the fire had destroyed over 2/3 of Moscow's buildings. Now, obviously, it was not in this condition for a very long time. Renovations have been done to it over the last, I think, 3 or 5 years. But this is what it originally would have looked like, more or less. And it's just a nice little building. So the building behind me here looks like very nice, very modern lofts, and that's exactly what they are. However, the building itself is not as new as it looks. In fact, it's actually an old factory of computing machines and components for them. It may be hard to believe, but the building you see here today originally looked like this. Instead of tearing it down, the developers worked with the pre-existing structure, transforming the brutal Soviet concrete facade into the fresh, elegant one it has now. Currently, it houses not just lofts, but also plenty of smaller, trendy shops and cafes, and the courtyard features some memorable art installations. So, unfortunately, the lofts have closed off their inner courtyard. Used to be you could go inside and there were lots of different statues and just sort of modern art installation pieces, but sometime in the last year or two they've evidently closed it off. However, right now we're passing this is like kind of I guess a cluster, if we want to use a very trendy Russian word or English word that Russians have taken. Anyway, a lot of new buildings here, some hotels, but just a lot of shops and stuff. We're crossing through this territory, and when we exit out on the other side, we'll be, well, someplace different. Behind me here is Gastroferma, which is, as they describe themselves, a gastronomic loft. Basically, it's just a very modern, stylized food court. Might even call it hipster. We'll go inside in a minute and take a look, but this is very common. We've seen these sort of pop up around the city pretty much in every single region over the last 2 or 3 years. So as you go around Moscow, you can find these things basically everywhere. They're quite popular. They offer a lot of different style foods, and I guess it's a good place too for small cafes to open up and get a start. The food options are quite diverse, as you might be able to see, covering practically every imaginable gastronomic desire. Wings, hummus, Thai food, sushi, smoothies, Turkish sweets and coffee, pizza and pasta, Chinese food, steaks and barbecue, ramen, fresh fish, as well as more traditional staples here in Russia, like plov, Georgian and other Caucasus cuisines, and chebureki and pelmeni. All of that combined with a stylish and pleasant interior, it's not hard to understand why people enjoy this location and others like it. Upon leaving Gastroferma, we head down the street to discover an interesting alleyway, apparently named, well, The Street. Judging from the name and general design of this area, we can gather that it's going for a more European atmosphere. However, The thing I love most about places like this in Moscow, where small businesses have moved into older, run-down areas and given them a bit of a facelift, is not the newer atmosphere that they might be attempting to create, but instead, these older brick buildings which are being put to use in some form, or even simply saved from demolition by proximity. And this right here is why I hate spring in this city. Doesn't matter how well they clean anything up, they never do a good enough job of it. And I realize I'm complaining, and I'm sure many other big cities have this problem, but and I also realize that this is the kind of inner area of little businesses, and they probably don't clean it out themselves. But as we go out back on to the kind of larger street, which is not some tiny little alley, it's a decent sized one, and we had those nice big houses there to begin with, take a look at the street and we can see that it's also just a mess, and it will continue to be a mess for the foreseeable future. And with that, we've reached the end of the first half of our walk around Basmanny Raion. From a touristic point of view, it's definitely not on most people's radars, but I hope that you've seen some sights you otherwise might not have, and even learned something new, whether it may have been about historical buildings or the more contemporary locales that Muscovites are known to frequent. A second video showcasing the district will be coming in the near future, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when it comes out. Additionally, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and comment your thoughts and opinions. I'll be sure to respond. For now though, this has been Russia in Context. Thanks for watching.